bringing you inside the USL Championship and League One.
Segmer's got there. Marcanek! He's been knocking on the door. He knocks it down.
Diving into all the biggest stories and top headlines.
You are ripping and roaring today.
This is USL All Access.
It's almost impossible to recreate that level of magic.
With Mike Watts and Devon Kerr on Sirius XM FC.
Welcome, everybody, to a new edition of USL All Access. A very happy Tuesday night, wherever you may be. You might be looking at your TV and listening to your Sirius, and you can't quite put it all together. That's right. Devon and I are theoretically in two places at once. With Devon Kerr and Emmett McConnell at the controls, Mike Watts, welcome to another edition of the show, one which coincides with a game right now on CBS Sports Network that features the Charleston Battery and Louisville City. This is a great two-screen experience. You can finally mute the commentators that you don't like, only to turn them on the Sirius app and listen to them talk about something entirely unrelated to the game. It's the way soccer broadcasting was meant to be done. This week, a ton about Louisville and Indy 11 playing on CBS. We'll go through the week that was. That was week 5. Get you ready for week 6. Some transactions to talk about and a fight. There was a real fight. Dev, welcome. You could be anywhere right now, but you're in two places at once.
I'd like to start off by saying, gotcha, Mom, because she always said I couldn't be in two places at once, and she was wrong.
Yep.
And Pat's listening somewhere,
Sorry,
trying
Pat.
to bear down on me for mistakes being made, when in fact, we have proven her wrong, Michael, haven't we?
We did it.
You rested? How you feeling after the trip? How'd you feel about the trip?
Oh, this was great, wasn't it? If anyone missed it, it's now available on the USL YouTube page, the full game between Louisville and Indy 11. It was the broadcast network TV debut for USL. Let's start with this. In 2020, someone came to me and said, with all that's going on with COVID, we may get a game or two on ABC. And I laughed. I outwardly exclaimed air in a laughing tone. And here's USL on CBS. In 2015, the first USL game I did was the first game that was on an ESPN platform. It was only ESPN3. It was streaming. It was the first game I ever did where we had a broadcast truck. We needed 2 for this game. We had 3 times as many cameras as we did back then, jibs and drones, and the new music sounds awesome. The new graphics package, which is interspersed with CBS, but like the game itself and the atmosphere around it, the time we spent with the supporters down filming our open, which was one of the coolest experiences of my career. The Isotopes All end, the tall standing section to the right was bonkers. And the Detroit fans who were salty that they made a CBS USL logo, I'm trying to find the nicest way to say this. I don't care about what you think. It was incredible. 11,500 were in the building, and it felt like it. And then we got the game, which was nuts. And we got our cornbread.
On the bingo card, 3 minutes and 15 seconds into into San Antonio, into the Louisville-Indianapolis Proximity Association football contest recap. I didn't have you going after the Detroit fans, and I'm here for it.
I just saw it. It's like, why do you care? You guys have the coolest fan culture in the country.
Sure
why?
You do. Sure you do.
Whether it's number 1 or it's up there, I don't really care.
There was nothing more ridiculous from that fan base than posting that they were atop the league before the Louisville game even started. Pettiness is where they thrive, so I'll give them that much. But that's all I'm going to give them in terms of airtime here. I'm going to go back to the match.
Yeah.
I don't know. Truly, I'm not sure what else you could have asked for. If you were a network executive, if you were a fan of the USL Championship, I understand if you're an Indy fan, you wanted more out of that game. We'll get there in a second, but
a 9th goal.
Yeah. 10 to make it even. It had everything, right? There was expansion and play. There were tactical changes. There were substitutes that made impacts. We almost had ourselves our own little fight on the end. Damian Loss has got some fight in him, by the way, and we're going to get there. The quality that you got from some of the key pieces like a Jack Blake, like Wilson Harris, again, if you could have scripted it any better, I don't know what you could have asked for, barring extra time and penalties in a championship match. It was awesome. We got cornbread. I had it 4 times, twice in one sitting. A third was actually the next day at lunch, and then a fourth was a little bit of leftovers. I wasn't upset. I'll put it to you that way. I wasn't angry.
The good folks at the tailgate brought us both cornbread, and I'm used to Devon of the Angel Share. I'm well aware of that commentary. What we got, however, was
Angels Envy. Solid Angels Envy. That we may or may not have decided, you know what, we're on holy ground. It might be rude to not experience it before we depart said cathedral, of course, after being off air and walking out of the venue. So
we're talking about the cornbread, of course.
Obviously, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Mike, like the history within the game itself between these two, it's the most in terms of opponents for Louisville. I'm almost positive it is for Indy. The most they've ever played another opponent. It's 22 matches now, right?
Yeah, it's right there with Pittsburgh for
Louisville.
Yeah,
there was this momentum swing for Louisville that they went 10 games unbeaten at one point in time. And although there were draws in there, 10 games unbeaten does a lot for the momentum. And so you're entering the match where it was now 8 games split evenly, 3 wins for each, 2 draws. But if you now break it up, it has gone Louisville's way. So the last 8 was one way, but now all of a sudden it's 3 in a row for Louisville. Louisville looked incredible, honestly. I know Danny's going to be mad. Danny Cruz, head coach of Louisville City, is going to be frustrated. He said it to us in the lead up to the match that we're now calling, ironically enough. But they were so good. I don't want to be rude or verbose or whatever we want to phrase in the expletives that I phrased to him in our coach's call. And I just said, have you ever sat back and just kind of gone, I get it. We're 4 games into the year, but bleep, we're good. I mean, yeah, I have. kind of, we'll leave it at that. There has been a moment. There has been a moment. We'll kind of leave it at that. Yeah, there was so much to the game, Mike, honestly. I had a great time on the trip. Kudos to the league for getting the deal done. Appreciate CBS, the responsibility they entrusted in both you and I to carry their brand for USL Championship to help continue to further expand theirs, but also be the ones in charge of this monumental moment that, to me, is the biggest game in USL Championship history. Thought it went off with a bang.
Yeah, I'm just going to say this. I think you and I both come from sort of different setups into our career. I came to college hoping to do this and ultimately went straight from college into genuinely this job. This is, along with Sky Blue when I was still in school in NWSL, like first 2 pro jobs I took. And this year has been really cool for me as an individual, looking around and seeing what's been built here. And I'm not saying that it was I who built it. I'm saying watching the fan support swell and the venues, the level of play in both leagues to the point where, you know, I was on CBS last week for this, and Friday night I'll be on Amazon in Houston for NWSL is nuts. And if you're, you know, unfamiliar with Devon's journey, I don't want to spoil the whole thing, but it's just worth noting, out of the game, like completely out of the game. Had played at a decently high level, and his knees weren't what they were. And ultimately you start a family and you have to make tough decisions in life. And he came into USL when they were just figuring out how to do games remotely and what would this look like. And there are people above him on the pecking order and people with caps and whatever. Devon and I so often go into these finals and it's a bit of a love fest between the two of us. And I think people can see that on air, but yeah, to do that with you and seeing where you came from and where the league came from and honestly where I came from, it was a very retrospective weekend for me.
100%. Thank you for the kind words, by the way. You know that we share brotherhood, right? And this journey has been, it's been fun. Fun doesn't encapsulate everything that we've been through, both good and bad, right? That have helped us appreciate this moment even more. Going into the match, Mike, last week, we were kind of talking about that journey overall for the league. And to your point, in 2017, this wasn't the USL Championship. This was USL. And the brand as we know it with League One and League Two did not exist. PDL was still League Two back then, a league that I frequented when I was in high school and coming out of college and in college. The joy that we used to experience for the opportunity to be on, and still do, to be clear, just different levels to it. ESPN News, ESPNU, right? The sites were set differently. In 2018, we had 4 nationally televised games, 4 total. To now spread out between multiple media partners to hit a number of 35. Spoiler alert possibility. Maybe we could sprinkle something else in there. But for it to, I don't want to use the word culminate because that's not fair. That's almost like the journey is ending, and I don't believe that whatsoever.
Right.
For it to reach its peak right now on a mountainous valley that we just continue to climb on CBS network television, insane. Truly, an insane feeling that I don't know how to put into words, honestly. I think we've encompassed a lot of that, but to be grateful for everything that you've done for me, man, for what we've meant and done with each other. I wouldn't rather share my cornbread with anybody else. And that's saying something because most people I won't share the cornbread with at all.
At all. That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Before
the bourbon,
we
bourbon too. Bourbon. I shared the bourbon.
We did. Yeah, I have it. I it's not on the shelf yet, but it will be soon.
Good.
Before we move on from that, massive appreciation. Sharni Yerke did a ton as our producer. Mike Roth had some shots out of that drone, our director, that were awesome.
Notice they didn't let us play with the drone, by the way.
Not once.
Ridiculous.
They
wouldn't even tell me where it was.
I know. Heather Mitz was my old partner for SEC on SEC Network, and to be around her again, God, my heart is full. So just a really cool weekend. Just spectacular. Onward. We did get a fight in another game. Do you want to add anything on Louisville and Indy before the transition here?
I would probably say that Louisville is, I said stylistically that Orange County was the most efficient and best team that I had seen in the USL Championship. Well, I don't disagree with the style. The best team right now is Louisville. Those are two different things. Thought that Indy still has a lot of football in them that is yet to come. They are nowhere near their untapped potential right there. And that they will be a playoff team. They're that talented. They're that good. They're capable. They've got a long way to go. They struggled in certain areas, but without a full game breakdown, Louisville was very, very good. Indy has a long way to go.
Yeah. I'll also add this. It's a comment I didn't get to on CBS on Saturday from Danny Cruz, the Louisville head coach. I said, what do you want people to walk away from this game on CBS, right? It's not his job to look at this as this is a CBS game. This is a game that airs on local TV. That's not his gig. But he's on Morning Footy. He's on, both CBS affiliates in Louisville and Indy interviews. And it was a big deal.
He's playing the game very well, and I respected that.
No doubt. He said, I am honestly frustrated anytime I hear someone refer to this as minor. Come to our stadium, tell me this is minor. If you look at where he came in 6 years ago and where he is now, he's the first one to say this is drastically different. And so nothing felt minor about having men in blazers go, oh, my God, Jack Harlow's at a game in Louisville at this purpose-built stadium with 8 goals, and the level was excellent, and it was awesome. And the supporters were unreal, including the Indy supporters that made the trip. It was about 200 of them. All right. Dev, you and I don't fight enough, so let's talk about other people's fights. 2 straight weeks, the Disco had no panic. The disciplinary committee did not have a single red card to adjudicate on, no suspensions to chat about. And then at the final whistle between Oakland and Monterey, We're reminded why the Athletics need to stay in Oakland and why Monterey is a perfect rival for Oakland. Only one of those things is related to this, however. Chase Boone scores the game winner in the 86th, and then this fight, 4 players off, Neville Hackshaw, Babacar Njai for Oakland, Walmer Martinez. The backup goalkeeper who didn't even play in the game, Carlos Herrera, sent off for Monterey. Njai wasn't even on the field anymore. He'd already been taken off. Finally, there's some sparks in this thing. You genuinely love to see it.
So here's the thing that disappointed me the most about it. Have you seen the whole game yet?
I've seen most of it.
The game didn't warrant this.
No, it came out of nowhere.
So vanilla,
relative.
So boring. And sometimes those are the best ones, right? It's like the game was yearning, absolutely aching for something to happen. And of course, it's the 86-minute goal, which is well worked, by the way. And Donor almost gets himself into trouble. The window almost closes. He's got the overlap. He's got the underlap. They get out of it. But like, there was nothing in the match that truly said these boys are going to get after it at the end of this whistle. And I want to ask you your opinion on this, because this was an interesting one to me. A lot of this occurs off camera that they don't air. Okay. What I've been told is that Walmer Martinez open hand slapped someone. So to start the festivities.
Wait. Is that a different suspension than a closed fist punch?
No, you're going to get the same thing.
All right,
sure.
Go ahead.
But my question to you is, do you congratulate Walmer Martinez because the level of disrespect you show someone with an open hand slap is pretty much of the highest order? Or are you saying, Walmer, if you're going to go, you better go strong and you better lead with the fist? So where do your thoughts lie in that? Do you like the open hand, or would you rather come a little bit heavier with that over right hook or something?
I'm trying not to laugh at the premise of the question is what I'm trying to do.
So good. I mean, here's why. There's a clip running around social media of 2 high school players, and I obviously don't condone the behavior, but one high school player basically shoves this kid from behind, and unfortunately, his legs aren't sent beneath him, and he's tall. He's got to be 6'1", 6'2", string bean at best, but the young man behind him, I'm pretty sure he's walked into some establishments after hours that he wasn't supposed to belong in. And he's definitely got an aggression about him that probably has seen a couple of bar fights in his time. We'll put it that way.
Understood.
Because he just lays this kid out. And so the analogy I'm making is, 1, if you're going to step, I usually step correct. Number 2, I'm not so sure I'm interested in Neville Hackshaw being anywhere near me in that situation, because he's the last one I'm going to pick a fight with. That's the guy that when you walk into a dressing room, you want to sit next to.
Yeah,
we're good, right? You're with me, dude.
Hockey has enforcers, right? Lay a hit on Sidney Crosby, and you get a fistful of Eric Goddard.
Yep.
And
you don't know where it's coming from, probably right across the middle, or maybe right in your face against the boards, because he's going to let you know he's going to do it.
No doubt. Next shift, gear up. It's coming. Hackshaw, if he wants to be that guy, can be that guy.
Oh, yeah. Raining haymakers. And this is confirmed that he, in fact, did start throwing lefts and rights. And then we get four red cards. Brings me back to a story that I have to tell you. If there's going to be a fight like this, you almost have to be involved. Again, I'm not saying that I condone people throwing punches.
No, it's just like, you can't be the one who...
You're in the locker room. You can't be that guy. My brother in high school, I'll never forget. His high school team was incredible. Bunch of these guys went on to play pro. It was like UCLA, North Carolina, Duke players. They were insane. Their high school district final was against this Gardens team that they had whooped the year before, and they beat him again. And I was ball boying with a bunch of kids on my team. I was behind the goal. My brother, the sissy that he was, a fight broke out at the end of the game. This kid got up, walked away, and went and laid down on the bench because his back hurt. To this day, his teammates, when they see each other, they give him the business. So I'm just saying, you don't have to throw a punch, but you better not be walking away from the confrontation. You can get involved and stick up for each other and not necessarily be the one to be sent packing.
Well, that's why you always walk in from the bullpen in a baseball fight. We'll chat about transactions, week 5 review, look ahead to week 6. A reminder right now, CBS Sports Network, listen to both. Enjoy yourself. It's going to be a whole confluence. Charleston, Louisville, Eastern Conference Final rematch ongoing right now. However, we're going to take a break here. Back in a moment on Sirius XM FC.
Let's get back to USL All Access on Sirius XM FC with Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
Welcome back, everybody, to USL All Access. If you miss any part of the show, available on the Sirius XM app, or you can catch it on the USL YouTube channel the next day. With Devon, Mike, we promised transactions. Let's get right to them, Dev. We saw two of them, at least rostered. One of them played in Louisville over the weekend.
So Aiden McFadden is a very interesting one to me that did get a couple of minutes for Louisville. I think people need to realize the impact he could have, not just in the USL Championship, but really at a multitude of levels. A guy that he's comfortable in either wing, more specifically on the right. Defensively is good enough as a two-way player. Attacking-wise, probably more suited in a wingback style system because he's got help on either side. So that's why if you pull him a little bit deeper, you're going to get that support up top. But I just think that this guy can really, really work his way into that Louisville roster. That's first and foremost. Lawrence Swatton's another interesting one because this is a guy who, coming out of Ohio State, Brian Mazanoff, the head coach there, Mike, he's got this kind of 8-10 type role to him. And Mays said that he's the most complete player that he's ever worked with. And he's not just talking about Ohio State. So a guy from Stoke-on-Trent, the Englishman, he's a leader first and foremost, and that's not just in the dressing room. Like, feels like he's got the personality outside to get people to follow him, and he covers ground. Covers ground is a big thing to me in that indie system that we just witnessed firsthand within midfielders. They really struggled to do so. That indie roster, I've said, and I will continue to maintain, is one of the deepest and most talented that we've seen in quite some time. So it's sort of the rich get richer, but that talent hasn't necessarily produced. So that's an awesome opportunity for him to step right in, a first-year pro on loan, to go and get some minutes. And last but not least, certainly, is Machop Chol. Machop Chol is collegiately a guy who just ran by people at Wake. And people that are going to be quick to forget because of the numbers, he was basically in the 18 every single week until he had hamstring surgery. Now, the reason his numbers weren't bigger earlier was because his hamstring had been bothering him for the better portion of 2 seasons. So he'd be in 3 or 4 games, then he'd be pulled out. But he did a really good job behind Yakumakis last year of being that second or third guy, whether as the 9, false 9, or out on the wing, and being utilized. Had a couple of goals to his name. Going to San Antonio, he's good coming from Wake with the ball at his feet. He's good in transition. A lot of times we hear these names, Mike, and we kind of just go, oh, it's movement back and forth. I could easily see all 3 of these guys not just being impact guys for these squads, but actually being involved in the rotation and working into the starting lineup on a regular basis.
Yep, so Chol comes from Atlanta, where he scored twice in 19 games last year. Aiden McFadden from Atlanta, where he largely played with the 2s last year. And then Wotton from Chicago ends up in Indy. All right, before I say the word here, I just want to make a quick mention of someone who always shows up at my Twitter whenever there's a rivalry game going on, and I call it a derby, and someone goes, that's not English, okay? It's pronounced Derby. How would you not know? Well, it depends what kind of English we're talking about, my guy. And also, I really don't care what you think either. Another derby in the USL Championship this weekend. New Mexico took on El Paso and Albuquerque. This is the Derby del Camino Real. Is it real too? Who knows? Anywho, 3-2 win. 9,000 plus at the lab. Awesome atmosphere. It came right through the screen for me. Cobo Reyes scored twice. Nicky Hernandez scored in the last 5 minutes. Proved to be the dagger. It was Amando Moreno's return game for El Paso. Joaquin Rivas scored in his first game for the Locomotive, but ultimately it's New Mexico. That goes a long way. Back-to-back rivalry wins and getting everybody on board with what New Mexico is trying to do.
I'm a big fan of the pickup of Marco Micaletto, by the way. I think the relationship that he's been able to create within the midfield, controls everything. It's different than Aaron Molloy in Charleston, right? Because he's a different profile of player. But his understanding of the system, when to break moving forward, when to be the one that drops off, the physical side that he brings to things, it allows everybody else in front of them to go and chase the game. And isn't that what Eric Quill has talked to us about for so long? It's trying to get everybody not necessarily running downhill, but in a positive nature. Dayon Harris, his bench, admission into the game against the Charleston Battery a couple of weeks ago, thought that really turned for him because of how good he was. They brought him on at halftime, and he's kind of kept that spot ever since. I like what he's done. They were physical. They did a little bit of everything. I am concerned for El Paso. I'm not just talking about the numbers. It's something about it that I can't figure out, Mike, when I watch, because I see some passages not as good as what we've seen out of Indy, but I'm watching them play and it's like, oh, watch this build. Here we go. And they get 75% of the way there. Or they play 6-8 minutes of really good football, and then they totally disappear from the game. There's an inconsistency to me from within their performances that just, it's probably not fair to say for them. It's not what came to know and love-ish about El Paso, because whether you like their style or not, they always brought it to the table. And I feel like ever since Claire Hout has come in, not his fault, they've varied from that. Their ceiling isn't as high, but their basement is still there. You follow me?
I felt like last year they tried to make do with Claire Hout tactics on a Lowry roster.
Yeah.
They just, if you're going to rip the Band-Aid, rip the Band-Aid.
Well, they're all new now for the most part.
No doubt. And that was my thing with New Mexico, even, a year and a half, 2 years ago. Like, I think Zach Prince does have different principles is the wrong word, but there were ways in which he was different than Troy. But it was all still the guys that you started with. So how do you turn that ship without getting a new boat? And I think El Paso is going through a little bit of that right now too. Like, all the guys that were the face of that franchise for 4 years are gone. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if you're going to change, but it wasn't going to happen overnight.
Well, and remember last year, there's also the big tactical switch. And I know people are like, oh, it's just numbers. Starting points for players are everything when you're so accustomed to being somewhere.
Yep.
And when you are out and out, a 4-3-3, and we're going to sit with a single pivot, or you're going to run with two, even just the back line, that ain't it this year. And while I think Lucas Stauffer, who I have a personal relationship, I think he's a good pickup and he's serviceable. Maybe he wasn't accustomed to that. But Liam Rose was.
Yeah.
Eric Calvillo was, right? Justin Dillon wasn't a part of this change that we're seeing in San Antonio. That is a player who went from ball on the deck as an out-and-out 9 at Los Dos to then transitioning to San Antonio that played primarily on the front line, but even as a 10, a lot of it back to goal, a lot of it physical and direct, and that's not it anymore. So there's so many changes that can disrupt the overall flow. And to your point, when the overall identity just changes and it takes time, we're seeing a lot of those growing pains pay out in front of our eyes.
Yep. How about Las Vegas? What a story they might end up being this year. They got their first win over San Antonio in 5 years, dating to 2019. Sean Smart gets the winner. There's only about 1,500 at Cashman. They let that wither and die on the vine so much. Like, they need to go on a 3-game winning streak to get people engaged again. Like, no more of the llamas, no more of the cash drops. Like, they're actually starting to play a little bit. It's pretty impressive.
When we came into the year, we talked about some of the young players to watch around the league, and I mentioned Potmar Boy in Phoenix at the center back position coming out of Clemson. We talked about Christian Nava, New Mexico United, Knights Pickering, right? Like, there's a couple of guys around the league that already carried with them. I probably need to apologize. To be fair, I think he got signed after the fact, but I need to apologize for the fact that we didn't include Sean Smart. And it's not because of the goal, Mike. Witnessing this kid in the flesh and what he's capable of. They asked so many different things of him at Clemson. Mike Noonan did. And the attack side of him was something that, as the year went on, just got better and better. Confident young man, lockdown defender. But it became to the point where when they were on that national title run, it didn't matter how deep he was trying to lock positions down or how high up, how much space there was for him to run into, or if he needed to play in combination. Things felt so comfortable. This is one of the things that I love about the evolution of the American soccer game, the pyramid, the collegiate game. Doesn't matter if you're drafted in an MLS or you're a homegrown or you're a guy that quote unquote didn't make it in MLS, or you're a guy that didn't get drafted at all and nobody knows about, and I'm not saying that about Sean Smart, but the opportunity for talent recognition, because not just the roster and quality of player, but the smarts of people in these front offices, which leads right into the Batista narrative of going and getting the right people to go and scout the right guys to bring them into your camp. Really well done by Vegas. Great goal by Sean Smart. And I promise you, it is just a prelude of what to come for that organization and that young man. I'm very happy with what they've done. They've not turned the corner. They have gone leaps and bounds.
I like the smart pun you made there. I
Cheers.
don't think it was intended, but maybe
It was. Dad joke.
Okay.
I don't get a lot out,
Okay.
so thank you.
Yeah. All right. Birmingham. Boy, they needed that one. Against Loudoun. They did make a shape change during the game. They trailed around halftime, ended up pulling 3 goals out of their hat. Tyler Pasher, nice, well-taken goal. It really wasn't settled till Majid Marana scored. I think it was 90+6 that ended that. But, boy, Birmingham needed that in the worst way.
Do we think this is going to turn into the back and forth of Birmingham-Yor that we've seen, where they flip-flop, never really truly grab the momentum?
If they go take a couple of games in a 4-back, they'll hang with it for a while. But are you talking shape, or are you talking just this roller coaster? Yeah.
Yeah. I think you and
they're banged up, man.
I know they're banged up, and I'm with that. But you and I can both agree, one of the things that has always frustrated me about Birmingham is the quality of their roster and inconsistency of performances. You can't, with what they've had personnel-wise, to me, that should be hovering on at least a top 4 spot every single year.
Yeah.
To me. And yet it's never really gotten there, has it? And there's always these ebb and flows. And I feel like every year, for the most part, we're having a conversation about the tactical change. And then it gets good for 2 or 3. It's almost gets good for 2 or 3 matches. And then it's almost like we've swept our problems underneath the rug. We're going to change it. It's like a relationship where you don't communicate and the issues are still there, even though you wine and dine and go out to dinner a couple of times. Actually, it's kind of like you and I.
Yeah, I was going to say, but the lamb shank we had in Cincinnati that I had.
You and Mike.
Yeah.
Mike and Mike.
Mike and
Not
Mike
in the morning.
Yeah. At night, late at night.
Not as good as the coleslaw with the barbecue, though.
No chance.
You
not
refused to touch the coleslaw.
I'm not
just like the retweet last night. You didn't get involved with that either.
No, this is not a joke. This is serious.
Okay.
Coleslaw is the devil's lettuce.
Question for you, but you do eat lettuce. I've seen you eat lettuce.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you not eat cabbage at all?
I'll eat cabbage too.
Okay. So
I won't eat it in that format.
What if the cabbage was cooked with blistered tomatoes? It's a fancy way of saying they're seared in the pan, by the way. If it's cooked cabbage, if it's blistered tomatoes, if it's eventually then cooled off and tossed in some vinaigrette. Not mayonnaise, but we've got some vinaigrette. Everything's just cooked and then made into a salad. Where are we on that?
No.
But you would eat those items individually.
Potentially.
You know, there is your brain at certain points in time ceases to amaze me at the conundrum of a maze that you make me walk through.
This is actually Sirius XM Food Channel.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Dives, drives, and Devon's poor food takes.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, we're workshopping that name.
Yeah, we'll sit this out for the moment. And on radio, it just feels like an odd happenstance. You know, you can really hear the crunch, but other than that, I don't know that people could really comprehend what we're talking about.
Mike, do you think Birmingham Legion are a top 4 team?
No.
Do you think Birmingham Legion make playoffs?
I assume
it's way too early. It's a way too early thing. I'm just curious.
I assume by the end they will.
Like it's a different look with AJ Patterson into the midfield. We know for certain that Samuel Kavita and Alex Crognali, they're a partnership and they're fine.
Yep.
And then outside of that, to me, it's kind of like you have Enzo, you have Tyler, and then to me, they're trying to work through everything else. Obviously, sorry, back up. Matt Van Okel in goal. So I basically named 6 out of the 11 that we're good with.
Yep.
Workshop.
And then you need to figure out the rest. And again, losing Mikey Lopez, tough. Losing Corcoran, really tough.
Really tough.
Yeah. And before they even touch the field, I mean, just brutal. Hartford responded to a fairly brutal loss to North Carolina, beat Miami 3-2. They had not won in Miami in several years. It's another 22 shots from Hartford. This is what it's going to be. And it might end up being scattershot. They may score nothing. And with the strikers and attacking players they have, that is a very realistic possibility. However, they did get the 3 they needed. Beckford, Williams, Mushagalusa all score. They never trailed in the game. Good response after, I think even Brendan Burke would say, laying an egg in North Carolina.
Can I tell you that certainly I will tip the cap to Hartford, and I think you did all of it justice. I can't even believe I'm going to say this out loud. I'm not going to use the whole phrase that comes before Miami FC. However, they're doing a good job. I'm impressed.
I know.
I'm impressed. Honestly, I think that the way that they're much more organized now in their system, and I'm not knocking what went on there previously. It was a different look, but it just seems like the roles are more intentional. Their flat lines defensively are very impressive. I think the way that they pinch teams into a corner and eliminate the assets going forward, whether it's the work off coming off the front line, the guys popping out of the midfield. I talked about the flat lines, but popping out of the midfield, creating depth to eliminate the ability to work through the central spots. That was death by 1,000 shots. And there's only so much you can take in those systems. You and I have seen it before. We'll see it again, where the Colorado Springs and now Brendan Burke at Hartford Athletic, they'll drop 20-something shots and they'll lay an egg. They'll also bank 4 into the back of the net. To me, this is just one that got away from Miami, but I'm impressed with the work that they're doing there. They'll be just fine.
Before we go to break, 2 quick results to make mention of. Pittsburgh does take a point off Tampa Bay, their first point of the year. Notably, Griffin back into midfield. That felt a little weird at center back. Junior Atu steps into the back line. Sterling starts, so maybe they're starting to take shape. Detroit City, I love this stat. They only got 4 points from a trailing position all of last year. That's nuts. You stumble forward into 6. You fall behind 1-0 and you get 2. It happens. Eventually, it didn't. They've already got 6 of those. They shut out North Carolina, win 1-0, and if you can believe it, it was an own goal. Dev, anything to add before we had to break?
No, just that San Antonio dropped double-digit points from a leading position, so that gives you an idea of how difficult it is to only get 4.
All right, well, when we come back, we'll take a look at the week that's to come, week 6, the championship, when we come back.
Giving insight to all the biggest moments in Championship and League One. This is USL All Access on Sirius XM FC with Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
Welcome back to USL All Access on this Tuesday evening. We're just closing up a game on CBS Sports Network. You can catch the end of it. Charleston and Louisville, Eastern Conference final rematch. I assume that it is currently 5-5. You absolutely want to get to your TV. You're going to get there, high likelihood. You're going to figure out this was pre-recorded for a lot of reasons with Devon, Mike, Emmett. Dev, let's preview the week ahead. Obviously, there's a game ongoing right now. We won't even get to that. It's worth noting now this is the first time that everyone's going to have to start thinking about how you work through the upcoming Open Cup round. This is where the championship comes in. League One's already been in for 2 weeks or 2 rounds. League One, 8 of their 12 are through. We'll see 16 of the 24 championship teams in now. Another 8 will go in next round. That's based on their previous performance in the league. The matchups are all championship League One or championship versus lower division. Greenville goes to Louisville. Charlotte will host Rhode Island. Richmond will host Loudoun. Tormenta will go to Miami. Northern Colorado will go to Tulsa. Chattanooga will go to Birmingham. Spokane will have to go all the way to Las Vegas, and then Omaha will get a rematch from last year's Cup set. They'll see El Paso. I left one out, but you want to get there first?
Well, first, I refuse to go any further until you say the El Paso game correctly.
Union Omaha versus El Paso Locomotive.
How do you say it?
Omaha.
You're usually right on top of that joke.
I try, but I sat this one out. It's a brevity thing, and now it's gone.
That's okay. I'll mention the last game because I actually think the 2 most interesting games with the addition of USL championship teams, I think it's the Union Omaha match against El Paso Locomotive. You already knocked it on the format. It's a rematch of last year Friendly reminder, this Union Omaha squad is coming off a ridiculous run of form in 2023. They tied a single-season wins record. They set a single-season goals and points record. They did pretty much everything correct under first-year head coach Dom Casciato, and now all of a sudden, they're doing the exact same thing. They're great.
And where did Dom come from?
Thank you very much. I was getting there before you pointed your finger at me. Again, this is the relationship. We can't swipe our problems underneath the rug like the Birmingham Legion. Former El Paso Locomotive assistant coach under Mark Lowry. I love the Lowry ball reference on the broadcast, by the way.
I had someone immediately get in my ear and go, no one on CBS knows what you're talking about.
For sure, and I don't disagree, but I got it.
Okay.
And sometimes, Mike, we got to make each other happy, right?
That was for the team.
I would also say, what are the haymakers that we saw in the Oakland game against Monterey Bay going to look like when Detroit takes on the Michigan Stars? And can someone explain to me why their owner felt the need to go on social media and talk about for 35 seconds what was their performance, like he was God's gift to this earth, and that he's the first owner ever to be in that seat, and that he had to be betrothed to social media at that point in time? I wanted to puke.
I usually sit out the whole NISA thing. Guys, you need to up your game, and you need to do it soon. The stuff on social about guys getting paid $300 a month. We had Maryland Bobcats twice. We heard from nobody in that organization. We did reach out
multiple times via email, via phone. It ain't that hard.
We
can promote you. We can spread your brand. When you don't respond, it's called a non-response.
Okay. Well,
also unresponsive. All jokes aside, if you don't respond, we're all in this together. If you don't respond, you're doing a disservice to yourself. You're doing a disservice to the league and the game itself in this country.
Yeah, all we're trying to do is tell your story. And in the case of Michigan Stars, their story is going to be stinky, smelly, and smoky because they're going to Keyworth. And good God, when I saw that on official letterhead, I almost fell out of my chair last year in the Open Cup. So, like, what a blessing from God that we got this game again. Love it.
Rigged. I blame the fact that Joe Malfa and Jamie Watson couldn't grab every ball at the bottom. They had to pick the one.
Do you
from
think
the top.
they froze the envelopes? Like
I know it was Ryan Rowe. One of the producers said they froze the envelopes in the freezer. I love that.
Yeah, excellent. Dev, best games from this coming week. Obviously, Charleston, Louisville already ongoing. No reason to tap on that again. Miami sees Tampa Bay. I love that that's at the FIU soccer stadium, not at the Cavernous football stadium. That's Thursday, standalone, 7 p.m. ESPN Plus. The Golazo game is El Paso and Oakland on Saturday at 9 p.m. The rest of these are all on ESPN Plus. Indy will see Charleston. Rhode Island will host Pittsburgh. San Antonio hosts Orange County. Monterey will host Las Vegas. Tulsa goes to Sacramento. Colorado Springs to Phoenix. Birmingham will finish the weekend on Sunday going to North Carolina. Count me as all in on Sacramento-Tulsa. Tulsa is second in the league in shots per game, first in the league in shots on target per game. They're getting their chances. I don't know that they're good enough, clinical enough to make the best of that, but I am confident that they're getting their chances, and I want to see them against a team like Sac. Also, San Antonio, Orange County, close second.
Do I have to pick one, or can I pick like two or three, or how does this work?
I just picked two.
Sweet. I'm going to go with the Phoenix-Colorado Springs game. Colorado Springs, I did believe that they were going to get a result on the weekend. Didn't go their way. They got to turn a corner, and they got to turn it fast because I get it. 4 losses. They've looked semi-decent, but this is going to get away from them real quick. The quality and depth is going to push away from them against a Phoenix team that, while I don't think they look great against Tulsa, second half, they did have some moments. They certainly produced goals. Goals win games. Problem is to your point, they also conceded 3 as well to a very talented Tulsa squad. I'll tell you what, Mike, my other one is the Miami-Tampa Bay game. I gave a little bit of affection for what Miami has been doing. I think they have a much more clear identity, though the Rowdies are more talented. They don't have a single point on the road. They've only got 1 win through 4. Said coming in that I knew they were gonna be a good squad. I just didn't know what it was going to look like. Well, all of a sudden, we're a couple of games into the year, and I still don't know what it looks like. I'm not worried about them, but I want to start seeing, hey, this is what we're working towards, as opposed to kind of just a bunch of ideas thrown around.
No doubt. That's all coming up in week 6 of the championship. And then a couple days after that, Tuesday, Wednesday, next week, you'll end up seeing Open Cup action. Devon, do we have anything that we're doing for either of the games? I think we're only on one together. I think we're on the Louisville-Greenville together on the Tuesday. I mean, 235 Swift songs, 188 Oscar-nominated best films.
I don't know if we combined 10 different items together, we could surpass the Taylor Swift thing.
No, I know. That thing went nuts.
When you speak of me, speak kindly.
All right. When we come back, there are teams that are winless and teams that are unbeaten, 4 and 6 respectively. We'll figure out who's going to end up hitting the bricks on that when we come back on All Access.
You're listening to USL All Access on Sirius XM FC. Here are your hosts, Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
Welcome back to USL All Access, everybody. Hope you're enjoying your Tuesday night. If you miss any part of the show, it's available on the USL YouTube channel tomorrow with video, or you can save us the embarrassment and listen on the Sirius XM app.
Like that voice. That was new.
Yeah, I brought that down a little bit. Can I tell you, I did a Masters promo on CBS and almost fell out of my chair.
Yeah, you knocked me over. And I wasn't wearing my shoes as usual, so I had no grip to stand up.
I know. Yeah, this a tradition unlike any other, the potpourri segment. Dev, Rhode Island, Pittsburgh, El Paso, and Colorado Springs have yet to win a game. Rhode Island's got 3 draws. Pittsburgh just picked up a draw. El Paso's got a draw. Colorado Springs, 4 losses from 4 games. Let's just hit this as clear as day. Rhode Island versus Pittsburgh. Is this their first win?
Draw.
Or Pittsburgh versus Rhode Island?
Draw.
It feels like a draw, doesn't it?
Reeks of a draw. 2 teams that can't figure. Actually, to be fair, Rhode Island is better than their record. I will give them that much.
I agree.
Still searching for sure, better than their record. Pittsburgh is not better than their record. In the Northeast, the weather was abominable on the weekend against the Charleston Battery, by the way. Who knows what it looks like there? Who knows what the game looks like? Just kind of feels like, yeah, that's a 0-0 and nowhere near a nail biter.
Yep, I believe it when I see it. El Paso will see Oakland at home. If they don't win this, all of a sudden you've given up more than a quarter of your home games, or I think a quarter on the nose of your home games and don't have a win. That's scary. I think they get one.
And they could possibly go 2 games behind the playoff line. I know people look at me and go, oh, 2 games is crazy. You're talking about 6 points. Moments like this are what define a season.
Absolutely.
Where coaches will look back and go, we couldn't get it going. The home thing at the beginning, if we wouldn't have given up all those home games, we would have been chasing right now, regardless of form. Or they'll turn around and go, we were crap out of the gate. And the reason we had to go on the road so much was because we were so poor at home to begin with. And the reason we went on the road and performed well was because of X.
Yep.
I got to tell you, not a good performance by Oakland. And the suspensions, I think El Paso turns the corner here.
Agreed. Colorado Springs, 4 losses from 4 games. We talked about it last segment, so not a lot to say. I'd be surprised if Phoenix doesn't win this game at home.
Yeah, the home thing scares me. If this was in Colorado Springs, I feel like I would have more of an inclination, to lean their direction. But Phoenix coming off some momentum, maybe got some steam at home. That's a difficult one to handle.
Yep. Rather than make each other look stupid because the game between Louisville and Charleston is about to end, I don't know who's winning that game. So I'm not going to say that either one lost. There are 4 other unbeatens. Detroit is a perfect 4-0-0, and they'll tell you. They're off until next week because of the Open Cup. They will remain not quite top. Sorry, goal difference. Orange County, 3 wins, 2 draws at San Antonio. That's probably their toughest yet. Sacramento will host Tulsa. They're 3-0-2. I could argue that might be as good a test as they've gotten yet. And then Tampa Bay will go to Miami. 1 win, 3 draws from 4 games. Any of them fall out of the ranks?
By the way, do we care whatsoever about who Detroit's beat?
No, not yet.
Yeah, I don't mean that in a good way.
No, I want them to find out later.
Loudoun, Indy, North Carolina, and Colorado Springs. I mean,
all 4 of them could miss the playoffs, which is the exact kind of run they made in September that got them in the playoffs last year. To be fair, they went and beat Pitt. Like, I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying, like, they ran the table on the bottom end.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Well, obviously Detroit's going to remain unscathed because they're going to play bye and they should win that game.
They should.
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe an interesting battle between Sac. Maybe. That Rowdy's Miami game, though, I told you, I like Miami in that game.
Yeah. Dev, you learn anything from this show?
I learned that you and I can, in fact, do two things at once. Who would have thunk? All those college professors didn't know what they were talking about. More for you than me.
And I finally learned it is, in fact, better to mute the commentators and listen to the podcast instead. For Devon, Emmett, Mike, thanks for listening or watching on YouTube, everybody. We'll talk to you again next week. So long.
This is USL All Access. If you missed any portion of the program, listen back anytime on the SXM app.